Hi, my name's Aiden McCone, and my life lesson is called Stop Waiting, Start Asking. For a long time, I believed hard work and patience would lead to one big opportunity. I kept waiting for a manager to walk up and offer some sort of promotion, but a moment like this never came. Real progress started when I stopped waiting and started asking. I know many of us move through school, work, with this quiet hope. You wait for the perfect job, you wait for your teacher, coach, or boss to say that you're ready, or you wait for some opportunity to walk up to you. The time keeps moving and your situation stays the same. But my view changed as I started to work more. I got a job at Nova Malibu, a really nice, arguably famous restaurant. I also worked at a smaller country club, and from there found my way into one of the most prestigious country clubs in the area. At both jobs, I saw how silence can hold a person in place and how action can move a person forward. So today, I want to share what I learned about not waiting around for something to happen. I'm going to walk you through two stories. First, how I went from porter to busser at Nobu, and second, how I turned one drunk guest at my country club into a caddy job at one of the best clubs in the world. Then I'll share what these moments taught me. When I started at Nobu, I worked part-time as a porter. Porter stayed in the back, cleaning, running dishes, handling a lot of work behind the scenes. I only earned an hourly wage, no tips, which kind of sucked. And on the other hand, bussers, they worked in the dining room, helped servers, but more importantly, they got a big percentage of the tip pool. So at first, my plan was to work hard, show up on time, stay busy, and wait for a manager to notice, because that's just how I thought it worked. But weeks passed, months passed, and nothing changed. There were several porters around me that had started before I did, and these coworkers stayed in the porter position. They worked hard just like I did, but they were also just waiting for someone else to move them up. So one night I asked my friend who had already gone from porter to busser what was the secret, how to get moved up, with hopes that if my actions matched theirs, that my future would also maybe match theirs. So I chose this new approach. My efforts stayed high, but my voice changed. I started talking to people more and started asking for the role that I wanted. I spoke with the managers, I told them that I wanted to move to busser, and I didn't just bring this up once and go silent. Whenever I got the chance, I would bring it up to them in a respectful way. At first those talks, they felt tense, it felt risky, even though I had nothing really to lose. And I was worried that I would sound too pushy or that my managers might think I'm ungrateful. But in reality, the opposite happened. The managers, they handle a busy restaurant with lots of staff and, problems to deal with. So without me clearly asking them, they really had no strong reason to rethink my position there. And after, solid work, showing up on time, and clear requests that I wanted to become a busser, the change finally arrived. My manager, moved me to the busser position, and my income, 3x what I was making, and all I did was start asking, so one decision just changed my path from there. I stopped waiting for someone to pick me, and I started asking for what I wanted and worked to show that I belonged in that role. A year later, I ended up going back to school and started working part-time at a smaller country club near my house. Of course, it was nice, but wasn't very popular or talked about. But one day I was working, and the director of golf from a very prestigious country club in the area, he came to play, and funny enough, during the round, he had a lot to drink. He had way too much to drink, actually, and after the round, I noticed he left his phone, wallet, and jacket in his golf cart. And, normally we would just turn it in, lost and found, and he'll come and get it. But since I knew who he was, I saw an opportunity. A person with real hiring power stood right in front of me, and I knew this was a door to a better job. So I walked over with his phone, wallet, and jacket, and I started a conversation. We spoke for a while. He was relaxed, friendly, definitely drunk, and we talked about golf, work, and the club he was in charge of. At one point, I just went for it and asked him a direct question. I said, how often do you hire caddies at your club? Because I wanted to become a caddy. And he quickly said we're always hiring good caddies in a very drunk way, which sounded promising, but one thing stood in the way. He was clearly hammered, so I instead of giving him my phone number, because I knew there was a risk that he would forget all about it in the morning, because I've seen that kind of drunk before in some of my friends, so instead I took the initiative and asked for his contact information and made sure I left with the direct way to reach him the next day. So the next day I sent him an email. I messaged him and I said, I reminded him who I was, and that I said I wanted a chance to interview as a caddy in a nice way. And later that day he put me in contact with one of the other managers, and we set up an interview. I prepared for it thoroughly. I answered all the questions in a clear, confident way, and the interview ended up going very well, and I got the job. And some people could say that, or might say that, this could be luck. There might be some luck in that story, but considering the director played around at my course, forgot his items, or that I was even the one to find his phone and everything in the first place. But that kind of view just leaves out my main lesson. Luck might have placed the person in front of me. Yes, that's true. I wasn't even supposed to work that day. I was covering a shift, so there might be luck, yeah. But my choices were what changed, my life into a new job. So, nobody walked up and asked if I'd like to work for them, or anything like that. It was my decision to move instead of stand still, and I did that. And so, I think both jobs taught me some clear lessons. Managers, directors, whoever it is, bosses, they handle lots of problems and distractions. So, the more your desires sit in silence, the more they stay invisible. You need to be direct, and you need to take matters into your own hands. Taking chances like that, it rarely looks perfect. Sometimes you're just standing at a golf course next to a intoxicated dude, and you find his phone. These moments, they can feel small in real time, but the choices you make in those moments are what can shape your future. People always say that regret lasts longer than rejection. So a manager can hold the option to say no, that's true, and the director could have, he had the option to ignore my message and just forget all about it. But no matter the outcome, yes or no, you're still gonna return to life with the same skills and same potential that you started out with. So you might as well go for it. But here's the lesson that I want to portray to you guys, is that no one's gonna pick you. At least you can't expect that to happen. It's just unrealistic. No one's gonna come pull you out of the back and bring you out on the whatever role you want to get to. That's just not how life works. And so for your own life, notice this pattern. When you see a role you want, walk up to the manager and tell them that you're interested, so that it's in their head and they know. And when nervous thoughts start to speak, remember my 2 stories and how they worked out for me as an example. I was a porter, I spoke up, and then I was making triple what I was making. Or when I was at the lesser known country club, I turned a forgotten phone into a new career path, potentially, if I wanted to go into that. But you don't wait for someone to tap on your shoulder. So that's my message. Stop waiting and start asking. Thank you.